Brought to you by Curious Marineland. So the year's ending, and I wanted to do a video on some student projects which I've done this year. And so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and show you um, some students in the past. So back then, students were allowed to be in videos. So I'm gonna this is a couple videos that show my cell poster project. And actually, let's go over the directions. So the video is basically the Hall of Organelles, meaning the ones that made it. Each one of the students was given a list of a whole bunch of organelles, and I actually added some to them. And they were in groups of four, and they had to do, and there was basically 8 groups, sometimes 7, and they had to pick 3. So what they had to do is they had to draw all of the organelles, but then highlight just their 3. And they had to have 5 facts on structure, function, and most importantly, interaction with other organelles. Then, so this is more details about the directions. Then we did a rotation. They had to create a quiz and go through and answer the questions based on the posters. They'd go from poster to poster. So I'm going to show you a little snapshot of that, and I'll go over the results from this year. So in the past, for example, I'm going to mute myself. You can see on some of this. So these students, they had to run up here. So this, I said, all right, ready to go, and you'll see in a couple seconds. Okay, so what happened next is, so they did the posters. And then I talked about the rotation for quizzes. I don't think there's anything in this video. But then after doing every rotation, they had to grade them. So here's some students. Well, I decided to check their progress wearing a GoPro. You can tell how old this video is because you saw a computer cart back there. We didn't have computers then. So some are like, what is he doing? So I walked around and walked around and walked around. And one of the results of this group right here, this is where, nope, nope, not that group. So this group right here, as you can see, everyone has taken their quiz and now they get to grade it. So the pedagogical part is students are going to look up information, and they're not just doing their 3 organelles. They end up looking up facts and answering questions on all the organelles from a list of like 21 that I gave them. Some are more important than others, but it gets them understanding that. So you can see here's some of the student interaction. All right, I admit it was one of my best classes from 10 years ago. Um, so then I put them on display. So that leads us to today. That's from 10 years ago. This year, we really ramped it up and did a really good job. So I want to just close out this video by showing you some screenshots I took this year. This is the answer sheet they make, and they answer all the questions. So this is what I call the Hall of Organelles. And so we put all the posters here. Here I had certain kids during what I call our advisory time come in and basically work on it. So as I zoom in, again, they had to draw all the organelles, but then they highlighted the 3 that they were assigned, and these are the questions they created. They created quiz questions, and they had to go from poster to poster. So these are out in the hallway, so even not some students that weren't even mine were walking through and trying to answer the questions, which is kind of cool. It kind of took on a life of its own. It was totally random what they got. Like I usually kind of only allowed kids who wanted to do the chloroplast to have to do cell wall and plastid. So I had one plant cell representative. Most were doing animal cells. And some zoom in. So they had to do a zoom in. So they couldn't just draw their facts, and that sometimes they had to go in and label. Like this one, they showed translation. They had ribosomes, so we did translation, even though at that point in the year they hadn't learned about translation. All right, cytoskeleton, nuclear membrane. This one had to show a Golgi body and zoomed in. This one, they randomly picked the nucleus. Well, I wanted them to do more than just nucleus. So they had to, if you look, they had to talk about DNA. Here's the chromosome unraveling all the way down to individual DNA. Again, at that point, they hadn't learned the structure of DNA, but they were familiar with it. All right. This one, they got centrioles, so they couldn't make it as a plant cell, and they actually showed some of the steps of mitosis. Again, we hadn't covered it at that point in the year, but it kind of springboarded. We could spiral back to it when we get to that point. There's another one of those. This was probably one of the best ERs, rough endoplasmic reticulums, out there. And then this one showed Golgi body. We also mentioned the endomembrane system, which was good. Mitochondria. Cell membrane. It's like, oh, what are you going to do for that? Well, we focused on endo and exocytosis. Again, planting the seeds for other parts of the course that we'd be getting into. Another group had ribosome, and they showed a zoom in on ribosome showing what would be happening. Don't just know ribosome, know translation, which is what they would have to know in great detail later in this class. All right, brought to you by Curious Maryland.